All right, let's go, yo. Ty Butler in the house. You know how we do. Streaming live on Twitter and on YouTube. I got my man Andy Bailey of Bleacher Report. He's going to join us in a couple minutes or so just to talk some NBA, man. We got the MVP conversation heating up. So we got to get to that. NBA playoffs, couple weeks away. So we're going to talk some contenders versus pretenders. I told him, I was texting him just now, just got back from Taekwondo with Noah, my oldest son. And I said, because I have been trying to get him on shows for a long time now, and we finally get it done today. I said, we'll hold off on the Kobe Bryant stuff. He is a big Kobe hater. And I still haven't gotten to a point in my like professional maturity where I can see like the anti Kobe stuff and not get upset. I'm working on that. God's working on me. But still a lot to talk about. I'm excited, man. If you caught the show last night, Jeff Johnson was incredible. Jeff Johnson, diehard Knick fan. He was delivering the goods. We talked some hip hop on the show. We got these hip hop takes off. Jay-Z, J. Cole. So we was getting after it. But yeah, just excited about the playoffs coming up here soon. I've said this a couple times, but it bears repeating. I think we get chalk for the first round in the Eastern Conference. I just can't see a world where Detroit, Boston, New York, and Cleveland don't get to round two. Whereas in the Western Conference, I feel differently. I am gun ho on Oklahoma City, regardless of who they play um, in that first round. Um, but the other seeding, I could absolutely see San Antonio getting bounced in round one. I could see the Lakers getting bounced in round one. And you know, I am rooting against that. I can see Denver, Houston, like all those teams, Minnesota, everyone is suspect. And not because I don't believe in them, but I just think the Western Conference is going to be just a slugfest. I think every round of the Western Conference playoffs, assuming injury doesn't happen, is going to be fun. And so I'm looking forward to that. Hit me up in the comments, y'all. Ty D Butler. That's where you can find me on Twitter, Instagram. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Ty D Butler. That's where we get it popping. Got the Knicks and the Rockets tonight. I didn't expect Boston to lose to Atlanta. So I guess the Knicks technically still alive for that number 2 seed. You got 7 games left. But the Knicks are still alive for the 2 seed. Without further ado, been waiting for this for a while now. Andy Bailey, Bleacher Report, covers the NBA at large. He joins us on the show for the first time ever. Hit him up at Andy Bailey, Andrew D. Bailey, I'm sorry, on social media. Andy, what's up, my man? Appreciate you joining the show. How's it going?
It's going good. Happy to be here. I appreciate that.
Yo, I love the suit and tie look. I would I would be kidding myself if I assume this is to join the show, but it looks like you're at work right now. I know you're a lawyer too, right? Like, do I have that right? You're also a lawyer?
All business for podcasts, Ty.
Oh, I love it.
No, you're right. I'm at my wearing my other hat today as an attorney. So yep, you got that right. I'm a lawyer.
Yo, Tiger Woods might need some help, my man. So if he hits you up, just
yeah.
Let him know.
If he's ever driving through Wyoming, I'll help him out for sure.
All right, let's start because I know we got a hard out here. I want to start with the MVP conversation. And listen, we are both big fans of Bill Simmons and his podcast, the work he's done. One thing I hated was the night of Thunder Nuggets. SGA hits the game-winning shot to beat Denver. They improved to 51-15. So there's still 20% of the season left. and Simmons, who's got an MVP vote, he's got a big following, so tremendous influence, just declares the MVP race over, and it annoyed me because it's like in the NFL, Josh Allen throws 5 touchdown passes in Week 12. If we say the race is over, it would be silly, and so I just was so annoyed by someone I respect a lot, but I also know you have some thoughts on the MVP race, so hit me.
Well, I would agree with that take, and I guess I would say it's not just him. I think it's becoming increasingly common for people to declare their winner very early. We've had multiple people declaring that Jaylen Brown is the MVP and have been for weeks. The SGA calls have been going on for a while, and then the flip side of that is there's a lot of people who are now jumping on to the Luka Doncic argument or the Victor Wembanyama argument because both of those guys have been incredible lately. So you have a lot of people declaring early, you have a lot of people declaring late and saying that the rest of the season doesn't matter. I feel like the general MVP conversation or discussion has gotten more intense every year. The definition changes every year. I honestly I think you can make reasonable arguments for Luka and Wemby, but I honestly still think the two real candidates to me are Jokic and SGA. I think SGA is going to win it, and that's probably fine. But it really is. It is interesting how the battle lines are drawn. They're drawn at different times of the year. It's just becoming this. The cycle is frankly crazy, and it's getting worse and worse every year. Not necessarily a bad thing from the NBA's perspective. I'm sure they're pumped that people are talking about this as passionately as they do for as long as they do. But it has its downsides too, I think, for sure.
Well, I agree with you as far as like the NBA loving MVP conversation. But the flip side to that is if we're declaring it over when the Thunder hit 51 and 15
Right.
and they've got 16 games left, then we're doing this exercise wrong. And it goes to the point of like the regular season matters, man. Like if you want the regular season to matter, the games have to matter. There have to be stakes. We'll get to seeding in a moment. But these awards, like, for nerds like you and myself, they matter because they tell not just, the history of that year or what happened that year, but it's the history of the league. Like we get caught up in stuff like that when we're doing player comparisons. Like how many top 5 MVP finishes did you have? And so look, I'll make the Luca case. By the way, if you guys want to chime in, hit us up. We are streaming live on Twitter and YouTube. So hit us up in the comments. The Luca argument to me is he's been one of the 3 best players for the last month and a half. And he's also still got 2 more games against Oklahoma City. So what we're saying is, like, despite the fact that, and I think he's been better than SGA for the last month, despite the fact that they go head to head 2 more times, it just doesn't matter. And I have a problem with that. And I hear you with Jokic too. Jokic, look, he's the best player in the NBA, right? So that has to matter. But I still feel like it should be a race that is discussed and not as far as like it being over, but people still being involved in it.
I think that's fair, and I think it's smart to look at the upcoming schedule and say, "Oh, there's a chance for Luka to make a couple more statements against OKC." And I don't mean to, I don't mean to rule him out. I think he has an uphill battle because his point differential when he's on the floor, it just looks so small compared to those other 3 guys. And I think when the voters look under the hood, they're going to look at stuff like that. I think he's kind of unfairly dinged for his defense to an extent. I don't think he's dramatically worse than SGA on that end. I could see a voter saying there's maybe more value to SGA's play style. I think he's a little quicker and easier to get off the ball than Luka is. But that's sort of a preferential thing. I had somebody in my office earlier today saying, but Luka is such a ball hog. And I was explaining, well, if you look at the numbers, it's actually about as good an offensive possession as the Lakers can have for Luka to go floor and be a ball hog.
Yeah.
There's a ton of value in what he does. I think that the Lakers, frankly, bad start for the first 2 or 3 months. Like they had a winning record all season, but for a long time they had a point differential of a negative, or not a negative, but a sub 500 team. And so I think that probably should penalize him a little bit. At the same time, you could say, well, the other side of that coin is that Luka has dragged this subpar team.
That's what I'm saying.
To 50-plus wins. When he's on the floor, they score really well. Another number that I don't think people – I don't really know how you would factor this into the MVP campaign, but they haven't been a below-average team when Luka and Reeves play without LeBron. So there's like so many different factors with all four of these guys, and what makes this particular MVP race so interesting is that there are four of them.
Yeah,
I said earlier that I think to me there's one tier that's Jokic and SGA, and I think Wemby and Luka are right below that. But like I said, there are reasonable arguments for all of these guys. The one that's really starting to like make me question some of my preconceived notions is Wemby, because his first of all, the knocks against him, and I think they're real. He has played so many fewer minutes than these other three guys, and I think that should matter. I don't think he's the offensive engine that the other guys are, and I think that should matter. But some of his impact numbers are just crazy.
yeah.
Like, I think he's already up to second in total plus minus, just raw basic plus minus for the whole season.
And then the fact that they are, I think I saw the Spurs are generating like the most corner threes in NBA history. Now, part of that is like an inflation number. The other part of that is just Wemby, his dominance, his size, his athleticism contributes to that. So yeah, like there are so many impactful numbers that just go beyond your traditional and your advanced metrics. And then obviously defensively, like he's the best of all those guys.
For sure. And his case just seems to get stronger every day. I think what is San Antonio like 24-1 or something?
Yeah, 24-2. It's losses to the Knicks, and then I forget the other team. There's a Knicks loss, and then there's one other team. Yeah,
it's a crazy stretch.
Might be the Pistons. I think it might be the Pistons, but yeah.
SGA probably still has a better point differential on the floor, but I think Wemby's close, if not there already. And I know he has the biggest swing. So like the difference between his team's differential with him on the floor and off, like he's even bigger than Jokic in that number now, which has been one that I think MVP voters look at a lot over the last 10 years or so. One thing that I think could be interesting, I was thinking about this the other day. It'll be really interesting to see how like the second and third place votes impact the final count, because we haven't really had to deal with that in a while. All four of those guys are going to get first place votes.
Yeah,
different voters. So it's going to come down. Not necessarily. It could come down to who gets the most second place votes, who gets the most third place votes. There's an outside chance that maybe somebody wins it without the most first place votes.
Well, I think SGA will end up getting the most first.
I think he's going to win it too.
Yeah.
He'll probably get the most votes and he'll probably win the award. But it's not as cut and dry as it was even like a month or two ago. A lot of momentum.
Talk to me about Jaylen Brown, because my take is he's having an excellent season, obviously, right? And he put out the tweet yesterday, 50 wins in a gap year. It's a tremendous story. Career high in points and assists. He's guarding the opposing team's best player on defense, and he's just been that impactful. A lot of his case for MVP, to me, is actually a case for Coach of the Year. I like Joe Mazzulla winning Coach of the Year, like that to me is where I fall on it.
I don't think you could have framed that better. And I think Mazzulla should run away with Coach of the Year, and I think his comment about it was amazing. I don't know if you saw that, but when he said it's a stupid award and it should go to the staff and the players, that guy has a soundbite like every other week that just.
You know what's so funny? If you just left that quote anonymous and said which coach had this quote, we would all pick Joe Mazzulla.
Yeah, I love that guy. He's I think he's fantastic. I think he should win Coach of the Year, and I think the way that you just framed that is perfect. I think he deserves a ton of credit, whether he wants to receive it or not, for how good the Celtics are. I knew we were going to talk about this, so I just was kind of looking at some basic stuff before we started, and I agree with you. Like, this has been an awesome season for Jaylen Brown, the best individual season of his career. And it's not really fair to him that people like me and others are now nitpicking this season. But he has very prominent voices saying that he's the MVP and saying, I'm going to campaign that he should win the MVP. Like, I'm pretty sure Stephen A. Smith said that a few weeks ago. Wilbon recently said he would vote for Jaylen Brown. And this is what I said earlier, like the definition of MVP changes.
Yeah.
Like some years it's best player on the best team.
Mm-hmm.
Some years it's the guy who provides the most value based on some advanced number. I guess the case for Jaylen Brown would be you're the best player on the team that exceeded expectations.
Yeah.
But and I don't think you can be a good team in the NBA. Almost you can find very few examples of a good team that doesn't have an alpha scorer. Mm-hmm. And Jaylen Brown is their alpha scorer, which is very, very important. However, they're 10th in 3-point percentage in the league. So I would say that's a strength of theirs. He's below average in 3-point percentage and effective field goal percentage. They're second in offense, points per 100 possessions, but they score fewer points per 100 possessions when he's on the floor. They are fifth in defense, so points allowed per 100 possessions, and they allow 7 more per 100 possessions when he's on the floor. So all of these things team-wise that make Boston really good, he's actually detracting from them in small ways. Now you can say there's noise in some of those numbers, like he has to play against starters. Mm-hmm. A lot of the other guys get to play against reserves, but typically you don't see a really good player, let alone an MVP candidate, who's got a -8 net rating swing. So the difference between when he's on the floor and when he's off, like that's pretty dramatic. I think guys like Mazzulla, the centers have really stepped up for that team, like Nehemias Queta.
Yeah, where'd that come from, right?
Yeah. Derek White is a fascinating player to me because his scoring efficiency is awful, but they dominate when he's on the floor because he's such a good defender. He's such a good playmaker. I could go on and on about Celtics who have exceeded expectations. And yes, Jaylen Brown is very important to their success, but the fact that they're saying he's an MVP candidate is just almost crazy to me.
I think you nailed it. The best description or the best campaigning for him being the MVP is where they were expected to be versus where they are now, and he's the best player on the team. Because we all thought that this was going to be some type of a gap year for the Celtics. Now, there was a case to be made. Mazzulla is going to have these boys ready, right? They're gonna play hard. They're going to shoot a bunch of threes. 3-point variance will keep them in a lot of games. We didn't expect them to be the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, but I'm with you, man. I don't even know if he's a lock for first team All NBA. Like maybe Cade doesn't come back and that frees a spot because the 4 guys we talked about for MVP to me are locks, and then Cade would be number 5. But if Cade comes back and gets the amount of games eligible, the 65 game threshold, he's not making first team All NBA. I think he's second team All NBA. And so it's odd to be arguing that a second team All NBA guy should actually be the MVP.
Yeah. Like I said, I think it's borderline crazy. And I maybe went too far in the other way. Like a week or 2 back on Twitter, I said that he's maybe not even third team.
Oh no, yeah, come on.
But I mean, do you think he's been better than Donovan Mitchell individually? Do you think he's been better than Jalen Brunson, Kawhi Leonard, Tyrese Maxey, Durant, Anthony Edwards?
But I think a lot of voters are going to look at them being the 2 seed. Like that's going to give him the nod, especially over like KD, over Donovan. Like that'll be the tipping scale.
I think you're right about what the voters will do. I would be stunned if he's lower than second team All NBA. That will be the conclusion. But I really don't think it'd be that hard for me to put together, and I'm not going to do this, but if I wanted to make a case that he's not one of the 15 best players in the league this season, I don't think that's impossible to do, even with the 65 game threshold. Like that.
I mean, because like Ant-Man has to be there too. We didn't mention him. KD, you're right about him. Like I personally would not leave him off All NBA. He's been tremendous this year, but I hear you.
I think we're essentially saying the same thing in that he's not in this MVP conversation, or at least he shouldn't be.
Yeah.
He has been phenomenal. He should get all kinds of flowers for having the best season of his career and being a big part of Boston saying, forget gap year, title contender. He's a huge part of that. But to try and push him into the MVP conversation was just a step too far.
All right. I just think that the first round of the playoffs in the Western Conference are going to be a slugfest. And so, like Oklahoma City, whoever they draw in round one, I just think they're going to win, right? But all the other matchups, I just think that can go either way. Now they're not set in stone, right? Because there's still 7 games left for most teams, and then you see 4, 5, and 6 are separated by literally just one game, and so you can see some movement between Denver, Minnesota, and Houston. But anyway, those matchups shake out. I can see them going either way. And as great as San Antonio is, like there's just no precedent that I can remember of a team devoid of experience the way that they are, outside of Harrison Barnes, who's played in 2 NBA finals, and De'Aaron Fox, who hasn't gotten out the first round, winning multiple playoff rounds. Their coach hasn't done it. Their best player hasn't done it. Dylan Harper, he's a rookie. Stephon, like these guys are just so young, and so they will be susceptible to a potential Game 6, Game 7 jitter scenario. And so, like, I think they can get clipped. Not that I would predict it, but it's certainly on the table. I just think the West is going to be so fun. Whereas, like the East, 1, 2, 3, and 4 with Detroit, Boston, New York, and Cleveland, I think we get chalk.
I think I agree with all that. I'll start in the West. The Spurs have the numbers and the indicators of a team that's going to march through the first round too, and I think they probably will if it's Phoenix facing them in that matchup. Phoenix is another team that's just blown expectations out of the water, but I think they would come back to earth a little bit in the playoffs. I think San Antonio would probably handle them fairly easily. If the Clippers sneak up to 7th, that I would still pick San Antonio, but I wouldn't be stunned if Kawhi Leonard had a crazy series and they.
How about that? I just thought about that. Kawhi Leonard revenge series against the Spurs.
It's possible. So that, I mean, I think they could get beat in the first round. I think Oklahoma City, like you said, is probably going to breeze through whoever it may be. And then just like it's been almost every year for the last 25, 26, 27, the rest of the Western Conference is just a slugfest, and you can almost pick a name out of a hat. I mean, good luck trying to predict how that's going to go. I think all those teams are so evenly matched. When the season started, I think it was fair to kind of have Denver maybe slightly below OKC, but their defense has just been so bad all season that I could see them losing in the first round. So it's wide open after those two. And then in the East, I agree with you on Detroit and Boston, I think, are probably going to breeze through the first round, especially if Cade is back at full strength for Detroit. The one team in the bottom half of the Eastern Conference playoff picture that I'm starting to no, the Philadelphia 76ers, man.
I'm with you.
If they're healthy, and that's always the caveat with them, and it's a bigger one every year because they just keep getting older. But they have an incredible amount of talent, and Tyrese Maxey's been phenomenal this year. Paul George has looked a lot better since he came back from the suspension. Mm-hmm. Joel Embiid is starting to string multiple appearances in a row. Now it could all come crumbling down with one bad landing or something like that, but and they haven't ever gotten past the second round since Embiid has been on the team, but there's just so much talent there that I wouldn't be surprised if they give a hard series to one of those, 3 or 4 Knicks or Cavaliers.
I'm with you on the Sixers thing, and here I'd say mixed metaphors. If this were the NCAA tournament, right, and the brackets come out, and the question is, all right, who's going to be the Cinderella? Like Philadelphia as a 13th seed, you're like, man, I think I feel good about them because they're only playing 2 games a week, right? And so that sets them up better. I don't think they can win the East because I don't trust the health, right? But can they win a playoff series? Yeah, like I think their ceiling is that they can be the best team uh on the floor if they're playing New York or if they're playing Cleveland. Can Joel Embiid play 7 games in 2 weeks? I don't know. But if he can, like it makes them a live dog, and so they're interesting. And I've talked about this the last couple of weeks, and no one's trying to hear me on the Sixers thing because we've had this same conversation year after year after year, and
Right.
then we've been kind of beaten over the head with Joel Embiid has missed more games in his career than he's actually played. But
Right.
I'm with you on the Sixers thing, man. Like they make things interesting.
Yeah.
Atlanta, I'm not as high on. Like they feel like a nice little regular season story. I don't know what the hell happened in Orlando. But the outside of Philly, that bottom of the Eastern Conference, I know like the East might be better than the West this year because look at all the teams above 500. I'm not really buying into that.
I'm not either. I'm glad you mentioned Orlando though, because frankly I wasn't really looking past too far past the 8. Charlotte is another team. I know they've lost a couple now in a row, but if they sneak in, they'd probably have to play Boston or Detroit, and they'd probably get beat by either one of those teams. But the numbers on them for the last like 2 or 3 months are pretty crazy. And I really love the way they play. That they could be a nightmarish 7 or 8. I probably wouldn't pick them to win a series, but they could be fun, and at least a challenge in the first round too.
They're a pain. That's like a team you don't want to see. Like,
For sure.
really, do we want to play them in the first round? What you think about the anti-tanking proposals?
I don't even remember what they specifically were. I remember hating them viscerally.
And that's a problem, right? But look, just real quick, my thought was, give me your elevator pitch. If it doesn't make sense when we get off the elevator, it's a bad idea.
I agree. And I think whoever fed that to Shams, I think it was the league wanting to gauge reaction. And who knows if they'll accept the fact that it was a bad reaction to it. I think it was generally bad. Everyone I saw thought it was pretty stupid. And I was among that group. And my general thought on the whole tanking thing is it's not as bad. It's not as big of a crisis or an issue as the league is making it out to be. For a few reasons. For one, this is a potentially historically great draft class. And when you have 2 or 3 guys who are potential franchise changers, you're going to have more teams wanting to lose than you do in other years. And I think that ebbs and flows. It'll be worse some years. It'll be better some years. I think that's fine. I think that's been built into the product for decades now, as long as there's been a reverse order draft, basically. The other thing is, I think they actually made tanking worse by flattening the lottery odds whenever they did that. And now they want to double down on that concept. I know that was at least one of the potential changes, was to have more teams into a flattened lottery odds group. And I think it's pretty clear that has had the opposite effect of what they wanted. And so I can't remember who said this, but it was pretty funny. I saw it on Twitter. Somebody said Adam Silver is going to be the first commissioner that has teams tanking the first round of the playoffs.
So that's my biggest fear. Like, you get to a point where it's like at Golden State, like, would you rather get smoked in the play-in game or just get into the lottery?
There's no way you would. Every front office in the league would say we need to tank the play-in. And
that's terrible. So we say play in, but it is technically a postseason game.
Yeah,
you have teams, and that's why I disagree with you as far as like it not being as big of a deal as people are making it out to be. And look, the college draft is going to be loaded. We understand that, and if you are a team just kind of wandering in the wilderness, all it takes is one player to completely change your franchise around. We see the San Antonio situation. But it's just embarrassing, man. Like, I'm watching a couple weeks ago, I'm watching Knicks Nets, and I'm preparing to do the radio show the next morning. And Brooklyn down 1 at home with a chance to win the game. They had like 5 seconds left on the game clock. Drew up a play out of a timeout, and they've got this dude taking a one-legged half-court heave. You take a timeout, you advance the ball. Why are you throwing the ball backwards? And so it's embarrassing stuff like that that just makes you go, we cannot have this happen. Like this is so pathetic. It's a turn off. It also affects seeding. Like if I'm Cleveland and Boston and I'm rooting for the Knicks to lose because I want to, either gain ground on them or separate myself from them, that just pisses you off watching that stuff.
I would agree with you that it's a problem. Like there are dramatic examples like the one that you just gave. Obviously, a lot of teams, it's kind of funny. The Jazz got fined for doing this, and then everybody started doing it after, and no one else has been fined. But
yeah,
they take their regulars out and don't play them for the fourth quarter to ensure the loss. That stuff is certainly not great. But like I said, I do think it will be up and down in different years, and I think the most dramatic way to address tanking is to get rid of the reverse order draft. And in that case, in the NBA, I don't really know why this isn't as big a problem in the NFL, but in the NBA, smaller markets just cannot get stars without the draft.
Yeah.
Even now, if they trade for them, the contracts are so short. If you trade a guy 2 years into a 5-year contract, as soon as he gets to Utah or Milwaukee or some other middle of the country team, he's already plotting, how do I get back to LA or New York or one of these cool teams? So I think there has to be some form of reverse order draft. There has to be some way to reward the bad teams. Otherwise, there's just going to be such polar opposites, who's good and who's bad. So I can't remember where I was going to go from there, but I get why the league doesn't want those embarrassing moments, those embarrassing games like the Knicks Nets one that you had. I also think that there are bigger individual issues on the watchability front. Like I think there's other things that they could address more
like
easily.
What?
I think they could.
Oh, the flopping stuff. We both hate it.
In a week, they could end not a week, a month. They could end the flopping. And I don't have some large study of a big audience to say this is why we're not watching the NBA. But anecdotally, I hear from a ton of people who are like, I can't stand the flopping and the whining and the traveling. And I think you can fix a lot of that stuff. I think you could get rid of replay reviews, at least stop having the officials at the game do them.
Yeah.
Those 5-10 minute stoppages drive people nuts. You could just send it straight to the replay center and have a decision in 30 seconds.
Like the NFL does that. The NFL does this. Yeah.
The ABS.
Baseball and the NFL have nailed that.
Yeah, they could keep that up, or speed that up. The other, I guess, a general idea that I've had, and there's multiple things that would go into this, but do you like watching the FIBA games like Team USA and
I love them.
World Cup, Olympics? It's so fun, and the game moves so much faster, and there's fewer stoppages. It just feels more like sort of a pure basketball product. I think a lot of it has to do with officiating. I think a lot of it has to do with fewer timeouts being called. I think there's a lot of things the NBA could do to just kind of streamline their product, that would help a lot. And you don't necessarily have to go like nuclear on the tanking thing to get there.
Yeah. Listen, I don't know how you feel about this. The goaltending. Like, just make the FIBA rules. Like we're stopping, because that's another thing too. Last 3 minutes of a game, it's 101, 101. So we're all locked in. Like, this is going to be great. And then it takes us 25 minutes to finish the game because of all the reviews. We're reviewing everything.
Yeah.
We're reviewing everything. Why are we doing this? So to your point, like,
I know I'm kind of like off in left field on this one, and I accept that. I would even try the Elam ending in the NBA, and I think it would get rid of. I know it would get rid of all the intentional fouling at the end. That's a radical idea, and
because now every game ends on a game-winning shot, so that's fun.
And you speed up the end of the game. I think at the very least, some state needs to try it with high school basketball and just see what it looks like. I'm a guy who still shows up to a lot of high school basketball games. It's just fun. And I have, nephews who play right now. And I had a brother who used to coach. The end of high school basketball games is absolutely brutal. They're intentionally fouling each other and they can't make free throws. And it is a nightmare. It's not as bad in the NBA, but that's one potential solution. And I know I think they tried it in the G League, maybe just in overtime a couple years ago.
Yeah, I believe so.
But I think there are other things the NBA could address and could address more effectively than what they're spending all their time on right now.
I know we agree with the block charge. I hate block charge. I think we just get rid of that.
Stupid.
It's the dumbest thing. I hate it.
I don't know how. Obviously, it's been in existence for decades. And this is another sort of general take I have. The NBA should be trying to make its product look more like a pickup game, as weird as that sounds. Nobody is parking themselves in the middle of the paint to have some dude run him over in a pickup game, because it's just not naturally a basketball play.
Yeah.
Like when you're just playing ball, you're going to try and stop somebody from scoring. You don't want to become a traffic cone that gets run over. I hate that play.
No, it's the same thing. It's like because we talked about this in the NFL, like when everyone went nuts about the tush push until every team became good at it, and now all of a sudden no one wants to ban it. Yeah. We were like, it's not a football play. It's not entertaining on television. Like people get excited, pound the floor. Like it's not fun to watch. It's stupid that Giannis is going for a highlight dunk, and you just get to park yourself in front of him, fall backwards. A lot of them are flopping anyway. So to the point about like how we get rid of flopping, let's just eliminate anything that can be a conduit to flopping.
And there's a lot of old school people who'll be like, well, it's already too easy for the offense and we can't give them another advantage. And how do you call offensive fouls? I think we all intuitively know that you can't go through the lane and forearm shiver somebody or like really lower your shoulder and lay them out. I think there's a difference between that and like the traditional block charge where some undersized dude shows up at the last second to just frankly become a potential injury. It's that play drives me nuts. If there was some way to get rid of that, I would be all for it.
Man, Silver's he's got a lot on his plate. The expansion, so the expansion, I understand, more money, blah blah blah. Like no one has to inform us on why the NBA wants to expand. I just think that when you've got all these issues at home, trying to add twins to the family just don't make sense. Where are you with expansion?
I like the way that you phrased that. I think that's a good way to put it. And I was, frankly, I think I'm pro expansion, but not as confidently as I was like a couple weeks ago. And you mentioned Bill Simmons at the top, and he had an episode recently. I want to say it was maybe the last one with Zach Lowe, kind of ranted about all the issues. And I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Like I can see how that's a problem. I could see how you could certainly exacerbate the tanking issue by adding two teams. Bleacher Report had me the day that the news broke that they were going to explore. They said, let's write, this is what an expansion draft will look like if it happened today. And frankly, I wasn't aware of all the rules. It's been so long since we've had an expansion draft in the NBA. I didn't know that they were only allowed to pay up to 66% of the salary cap in their first year. So that made doing the expansion draft interesting. And those teams are going to be awful for the first couple of years, and maybe longer. So you potentially add to that. I think the reason I'm still kind of pro is I do think there's a deeper talent pool in basketball than there's ever been.
I agree.
In the history of the world. So I think there is enough talent. I'm a person who probably never fully got over the Supersonics thing. I'm not from the Northwest. I don't really know anybody there, but I just kind of loved the Sonics, and I thought it was terrible what happened to those fans to lose their team like that. So I think it'd be cool to get them back. There's something intriguing to me about having 32 teams, which is a better number for a sports league, in my opinion. It makes it easier to divide teams into divisions. And I really like the idea. I wrote an article a year or two ago about years and years and years of a severe imbalance between the East and West.
Yeah.
And I think it could help if one of those Western Conference teams went to the East. Like if Minnesota was suddenly an Eastern Conference team, that could help with that a little bit. So I think there's pros and cons. I'm not as gung-ho about it as I was a week or two ago, but I still kind of like the idea.
All right. Before we get you on out of here, who's coming out the Eastern Conference?
I'm going to go with Boston.
Really?
I think Jason Tatum already looks better than I thought he would. For how short he's been back, I think by about the second round, he's going to start looking like his old self. I think in some ways, Boston is even more dynamic than they were last year. They seem younger, faster, more athletic. And I think they have the best coach in the league right now. So I'd probably go with Boston, but it's not something I feel super confident in. The Knicks are really good. The Pistons are really good. What the Pistons have done without Cade,
yes,
the last few games is
amazing.
pretty incredible. The East, I agree with what you said earlier that the East probably hasn't quite caught up to the West yet, but it is better. And there's 2 or 3 teams I could see going all the way. I would probably go with Boston.
So what do you like and dislike about the Knicks? Because they're not your pick.
I love their starting 5. I don't really know where they are defensively this season.
They're in the top 10 now. Because they had that during their 7-game win streak.
I see
they were excellent defensively, so they climbed up. Last couple of games haven't been great, but
so I really like that starting 5. I know a lot of people are out on Bridges, and he's never going to overcome the reputation that he has because of the trade, which is obviously not his fault, but he's always going to be looked at as the guy who they had to pay 6 picks to get. But I think him and Anunoby are a really good mix, particularly if they have to play Boston, because they can match up with those wings better than other teams can. I've always thought Cat is underrated. I know he's prone to some pretty big swings throughout the regular season, and foul trouble has been a big problem for him in the playoffs. I like Brunson a lot. He's obviously a big game player. I really like the way that first 5 fits together. The reason I asked you about their defense is in the playoffs, I'd be worried, one, about Cat's consistency in the playoffs, and I always worry about a defense with Brunson and Towns in a lineup together. I think that's potentially exploitable. But they're another team, like I said, I could see them representing the East in the finals. It's pretty crazy that there's 3 or 4 teams I could realistically see getting there.
Well, it's going to be fun, man, because if the standings hold, we'll get Boston and New York in the second round. And now Tatum's making his return to the place. I was at that game where he tore his Achilles. So that would be pretty remarkable. And I'm assuming you're going to Oklahoma City in the Western Conference?
Yeah, I would. And you mentioned being at the game where Tatum tore his Achilles. I was in OKC when Halliburton tore his.
Oh, man.
The way even in OKC, the way the air just sort of left the arena.
Did you feel like Indiana was going to win that game?
So the whole way between 6 and 7, the whole time I'm thinking OKC is going to smash them. It's cool that they got to 7 games, but OKC is going to kill them in Game 7. And I think he tore it in the first quarter, right?
Yeah.
But
he hit like a couple threes before that.
There was an energy to the Pacers and to that game, even if it was only 5 minutes or something. I already within those first few minutes started thinking, "Oh my gosh, are they going to do this? Do they have a chance to pull this off?" And it would have been such a crazy story if they had. And when he went down, it was just, oh my gosh, just gut-wrenching for the Pacers and their fans. And you could tell even the Thunder fans were like, "Shoot, not like this."
Yeah.
So that was a weird event to be at, and I'm sure the Tatum one felt weird too.
Oh my, because that was to me the best game I've ever seen Tatum play, and I know he had the 50 against Philly in that game 7, but he was just in complete control of the game,
Yeah,
and then just goes down. Like that was so devastating, man.
last year
So
was so weird with all those Achilles tears, just so strange. Hopefully, nothing like that this year.
but yo, man, I appreciate you for joining the show. We'll do this again. I'm looking forward to the playoffs. I know you are as well. Keep doing great work, man. I'm a big fan of the stuff you put out, and we'll get to the Kobe conversation at some point.
Yeah, let's do it.
Andy Bailey, I appreciate you, man. Have a great rest of your day. That was Andy Bailey. Does an awesome job for Bleacher Report. Um, Getting excited talking about the playoffs. You start to remember like a year ago at this time, all of the like anticipation. Like who knew Indiana was gonna go on that run? We all knew Oklahoma City was great, but the injuries, man, all of this, all that we put into prognosticating these playoff series and rounds, you obviously just can't account for devastating injuries. And we got multiple last year. We had Tatum in the game I was at. What was that? Game 4 at the Garden. It was a Saturday afternoon, right? Saturday afternoon. The city was lit. Driving to the game, great weather. There was an energy outside the arena. Knicks were up 2-0 and lost game 3. So this is a pivotal game 4. If you lose game 4, you completely erase all of that progress that you made in the first 2 games with those 20-point comebacks. And Tatum is cooking. He is cooking. As I said, in the midst of the best game I've ever seen him play. And this is a guy who had 50 in a game 7 to get his team past Philadelphia. And that dude was hooping. Goes down with the Achilles. At that point, the game was essentially on its way to being over. So, give credit to the Knicks for, despite him being awesome, them finding a way to overcome that. But between him and Halliburton, it was just like, man. But Tatum's back. He's back. Makes the playoffs a lot of fun. What we could not afford to have was no Giannis, no Cade, so hopefully he comes back, and no Tatum. You're talking about 3 of the 6, 7 best players in the conference just not in the playoffs altogether due to injury. You couldn't afford to have that happen. So I'm glad that those guys, Tatum's back. Giannis obviously won't be a part of the mix. And then you have Cade Cunningham if he's able to return. Andy brought up. You see, Detroit 7-3 in their last 10 games. They lost a nail biter against Oklahoma City. They lost a 1-point game to Atlanta, but they have been cooking without Cade Cunningham. And maybe I don't believe in the phrase like blessing in disguise when it comes to injuries. Like there's no such thing as a guy getting hurt and it's a blessing in disguise. Like that to me is silly, especially when you don't know what the timetable is for his return, and even if he does come back, how he's going to look. I understand from the standpoint of this gave the rest of that roster a chance to like gel and step up because they are going to be counted on in big games. And our biggest question about Detroit was, who's their secondary scorer? Is it Jalen Duren? Like, are we trusting that that can be your secondary offensive option and you win multiple playoff rounds? But Detroit, man, don't sleep on. It sounds silly to say this about the 1 seed, but don't sleep on them cats. They haven't won a playoff series since 2008. Have a lot to prove, but if we are to believe that in their case the progression is linear, they took the Knicks to 6 games last year. Looked pretty damn good in that series, and if not for a heroic shot by Jalen Brunson, who just cooked Arthur Thompson, like just hit him, put him on skates, straight, did him dirty. If not for that shot, we're looking at a big game 7 at MSG. between the Knicks and the Pistons. Knicks, I know some people, it's like a roller coaster. Yo, all the Knicks fans, and I get it, man. When you're this invested emotionally and the expectations are so high, I understand. Just when you win, it's like I don't think we're ever gonna lose again. And then when you lose, it's like we stink, cancel the rest of the season. I get it, especially you win 7 straight, but it's like all right, we beat the tomato cans of the league, and then when it was time to step up in competition, we got smacked around by Charlotte, we got smacked around by Oklahoma City, back to back double digit losses, and all of a sudden, excuse me, our defense that we thought had turned this corner hasn't looked great in the last 4 games. You gave up 113 to Washington, 116 to New Orleans, 114 to Charlotte, 111 to Oklahoma City, 111 a little bit misleading. They stopped trying to score once the game was over in that final minute. So I get it. The Knick fan, topsy-turvy, emotional roller coaster. Because once you are here, and you got to remember, for a lot of Knick fans, they've never been here before. Where this isn't some cute story, Little Sisters of the Poor. We arrived earlier than expected. No, this was the moment Halliburton went down in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. 2 rounds after we saw Tatum go down, it was like, all right, this is your conference. It's all you. No more excuses. Let's get it popping. Show me what you got. This is the roster. All the investment you made, the Mikal Bridges trade, the Cat trade, Brunson, that contract. You gave OG a contract. You fired Tom Thibodeau. You bring in Mike Brown. So I get it. It's like this is our squad. We can do the whole Giannis dance all we want to. But once we got to the deadline and we saw that man wasn't being traded, this is where we are. This is the team we got. Let's go see if we can win 4 playoff rounds. And so if you're a Knicks fan, as the wind blows, you've been excellent, then you go through a 2-9 stretch. Then you're excellent again. Then you start slipping up and you have a little bit of a, hiccup in LA. Back-to-back losses to the Clippers and the Lakers after, a couple days ago you lost to Oklahoma City. It's like, all right, man, what's going on? 7 in a row against the tomato cans. Now back-to-back losses, Charlotte, Oklahoma City. You're in Houston tonight to play a Rockets team. We don't even know if they like each other. Let's keep it a buck. We don't know if the Rockets like each other. They have been disappointing. Rockets have had some terrible losses. That overtime loss to Minnesota, one of the worst losses I've ever seen. They lost to Chicago. Chicago's not even trying to win. Durant scored 40, and they still lost to the Bulls. They lost back-to-back games to my Lakers. Back-to-back home games against the Lakers. And you lost both of them. That's hard to do. So the Knicks, it's time to get right. It's a get-right game for them tonight. And I expect them to do that. They're 1.5-point favorites in Houston. That's a nationally televised game. Should be fun. Durant against Jalen Brunson. I expect to see Cat go out there and ball. And I think the Knicks win this game. I think they win. Excuse me, yo.